Well, it's another day in paradise, as somebody I can't stand the sight of used to say. Well, we had a late night last night because Lena and Taliklik arrived at the door, and Taliklik was in some pain, and so we ended up driving to emergency room in Taliban. And what has happened, just to bring you up to date, is that Talik hasn't been feeling well for a few days, and she's been having stomach pains and stuff. So we ended up going and we went to our doctor, Dr. C, and he recommended ultrasound. Ultrasound is a cheap way of finding out if there's some investigation needed. And it came back that the ultrasound technician had made some discoveries, and the possibility was that it was appendicitis. Well, I hadn't heard of anybody having appendicitis for a number of years, whereas when I was Talik's age, it seemed to be a fairly common thing. The doctor that we spoke to finally confirmed that they still do quite a few appendicitis, appendectomies, I guess they call them. And so, as I say, we ended up arriving at the emergency room in Taliban. The hospital at Taliban does its very best, but it is a fairly simple grassroots hospital. It's not incredibly well equipped. I think it does do X-rays, and it does do, as I say, the test that Taliklik took. So when we arrived there, we finally the facilities are primitive. They're like something out of the MASH movie. When you first get there, you go to a little place that's set up under canvas, practically outside the hospital. You don't actually go into the ER. And this is since the COVID madness has been going on. They don't actually take you into the ER itself. You go into a holding unit that's outside, and they assess your case, and then you might be allowed to go into the inner sanctum of the emergency room. Well, we didn't get that far because we saw the doctor. He interpreted the ultrasound findings and said if it is that it's an appendicitis, then we have no way of treating that. So the best bet is to continue on driving and go to Ubay. Well, as is always the way, it becomes quite a challenge because we're low on gas and there's nowhere is open at that time of the night. We're talking, late night, 9, 10 o'clock at night. In Taliban, somebody puts the lights out. The last one to leave puts the lights out. There's not very much happening. So anyway, we managed to get to Ubay on what we had. Went into the ER, very similar situation there, but they're much better equipped and they have surgeons who can do the various bone work and surgery. So we saw a very nice doctor. Now, I know that I'll be criticized for this. What the hell? We all have our own beliefs. We are not vaccinated on the Hill, and the only two that have been vaccinated are Bibi and DC, who, out of, I think, pure rebelling, went in and had the first shot, and they then found out better that was it. There's so much more information come out on this that if you're not keeping up on it, you damn well should, because there's some stuff that you should be seeing. do your own research is what I've always said. No matter what it is, whether it's a question about immigration or whatever, go to the source. And there are people out there now who are whistleblowing on what's really been happening, all the censorship and all of that. Well, anyway, by the time we got to Dubai, they've actually relaxed on all of this, doing swab tests and COVID tests when there are no symptoms. That's what was the norm when we went a couple of times that we've been to the emergency room. Well, they quit on that now, and so I didn't have to be concerned about Taliklik. Well, she was examined by a very, very nice doctor who definitely knew what she was doing, and the final answer is that Talik has been admitted into the hospital in Dubai. We are waiting now for tests from the MRI. The doctor said that based on what she could find in her examination, which is all external, of course, just pressing here and pressing there, how does it hurt on a scale of 1 to 10, all of these basic doctor procedures. And she said, I'm not convinced that it is a appendicitis, so we're going to do the MRI. Do you want to do it and then go home, or do you want to be admitted where she can be taken care of now? I felt that I could trust this doctor, and we said that Taliklik should be admitted, and she is there with her mom, Lena. We now have to wait apparently about 5 days for the results and assessment from the MRI. Now, we will be going down there making sure they have everything that they need. The timing, of course, as always, is terrible. Taliklik is not in a tremendous amount of pain. I watched her being examined. I watched the doctor pressing on the stomach, asking questions, does this hurt? And a little technique that I meant to ask the doctor about, but didn't get the chance, of pressing in and then quickly withdrawing like that and seeing what the effect was and asking lots of questions. And that was when she made her assessment and said, I don't believe that this is definitely appendix. So we're now waiting for the results on that. Taliklik has her mom with her. We'll be going over the next few days and making sure she's in contact, obviously, all the time on her phone, so we know exactly how she's feeling and how she's doing. For those of you who don't know, Taliklik I consider my adopted daughter. When we arrived 10 years ago, her dad died. She wasn't close to her father, and I have been her father ever since. Now, there's no point in the bashers saying you're not allowed to adopt. She's my adopted daughter. Unofficially is what I had to eventually start saying, my unofficially adopted daughter, and the only father that she's known. So we're now waiting. We are, of course, concerned. We're worried. If it's a surgical procedure, with any surgical procedure, there is cause for concern, because she's going to have a general anesthetic. General anesthetics aren't good for you. They can affect short-term memory, and so if you can possibly get away without doing all of that, it's much, much better. But of course, needs must. We must go along with whatever is needed, and the surgeons, part of the medical profession, do a good job. They're like the mechanics on your car. They assess the damage and they replace or remove the part, and that's what they're doing right now. Fortunately, and I have to touch on this, even though some a-hole said to me, stay in your lane, which is a transgender saying which has emerged since all of that mess and that particular insanity started to come about. that they're telling little boys and girls that they can be little girls and boys. There's none of that going on here. There's no education on all of that about how a child can change their sex. There's no big emphasis and focus on that. Whether they are doing that kind of push, that will be, well, that we won't have to wait and see what happens on that. But so far, we're not having that problem. So she's not going to be getting any counselling on whether that stomachache means that she really should have a penis instead of what she has. It's important to me, if I come across as being concerned or upset about this, I am, because we deal with these wonderful Filipino kids. Now, obviously the people that are on, the youngsters that are on our education program, our education support program, in which we give an education allowance to help them to meet the initial, I call them grassroots costs, bus fare to and from the college of their choice, and being able to have something to eat when they get there for lunch. All of that comes from the modest allowance that we're able to give, all thanks to the real heroes, who are the ones in foreign land, I've got to say, who are sending us some money to be able to do that service for those kids. And they, of course, are youngsters. They're not the little children that I'm being concerned about now. So we will be in touch, of course, and let everybody know what is happening. And of course, your prayers are always very much appreciated. So thanks for looking in, and we'll be back.